What's up, everybody? Welcome in to a long-awaited edition. It feels like, Ethan. It's been a minute since we've just done a regular SSPN live. I think the last one we did was back in Summer League. So welcome to the 2023 season, and welcome to SSPN Live, Ethan. Because we're done with the preseason officially. The Spurs played their final game of the preseason, which they went to San Francisco and beat the Golden State Warriors. Had a lot of fun moments in that one that we'll definitely talk about today. But yesterday, Ethan, we had some breaking news. Our guy Zach, 2-year, $35 million contract extension. As we've said throughout the offseason, as Pop told us at the end of last season, he's the 5 of the future. We just locked him up for another 2 years. What are your thoughts on Zach's extension?
I think it's well deserved. I mean, we've had him on his current contract basically for nothing. So in
Right.
some ways, this contract is like he deserves it. He's played phenomenal for us. Like let's make up for it a little bit because he didn't make that much money the past couple years. But even that aside, I think that 35 million for 2 years is really like a nice contract. It's affordable. It's going to be easily tradable down the line if that's something that we want to look at. And when you compare it next to guys like Onyeka Okongwu, who just got 68 million to be a backup center this today, and then guys like Naz Reid, I don't know how much money Naz Reid got, but it was
He
more
got
than
a
35 million.
handful, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and he's also just going to be a backup center. And Zach, for now at least, is starting for us and extremely valuable, especially offensively and as Wemby's protector and enforcer, of course.
Yeah. Not to get too far future sighted here, Ethan, but when you talk about how, just the affordability and you bring up the other comparisons around the league, you think about the guys that are waiting in the wings for contracts, and that's just another move by Brian Wright that you got to applaud. And then just when you
Mhm.
look at it in the state of the NBA today, it feels like every single time, every year when we talk about contracts, the cap is going up. Like inflation is going to continue to happen in the NBA for eternity. It
Mhm.
feels like who knows what the cap is going to look like in 2030. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
obviously that's a long way away and isn't really relevant to necessarily Zach's extension. But the point I'm trying to make here is probably like 3 years ago, this would have been like a $10 million contract when it comes to like the market rate. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And when I think about that, man, because it's 17.5 million for both of those 2 years. I'm sure there's some bonuses in between, but 35 divided by 2 is 17 and a half. That's the one good math thing I've done. And the only reason I got it was because of the calculator. Now, I
Mhm.
thought that's what it was, but I still had to double check. I wasn't confident enough. But anyways, this is a very affordable contract. And I think there's a lot of people who might be like, this seems like a lot, but you got to take in the context of inflation. Like
Mhm.
we're not in the same market as we were 3 years ago. So to me, this just feels like a steal, especially when you brought up like the other backup contracts that have gotten more, are
Yeah.
getting paid more year by year than Zach is. And especially when you consider the way that Zach, and I know it's 6 preseason games, you don't want to take too much, but considering the injuries and all of the context with Zach, it really seems like physically this is the most imposing he's been since he's been a Spur. And it feels like he can only continue to get better and better. So he might even continue, if he can continue to grow in his potential, he can continue to exceed the contract, is the point I was trying to get to.
For sure. And you don't even have to base your analysis of his game on these 5 games or whatever it was. Go look at last year when we traded Jakob Pertl. His numbers jumped up to, I think, what was it, 17, 6, and 4, or something like that, on
Yeah.
really efficient shooting, like 38% from three, 50+% from the field. And what his energy that he brings to our team, and the way he acts as a hub and a playmaker out of the high post, like this contract is
Yes.
1000% worth it. Anybody that doesn't think that, you just go watch some of the games last season and prepare yourself for what you're about to see this year.
Yeah, when you talk about him in the high post and just how much offense we do run out of him,
Yes.
we were kind of hyping that up during the season. And in the preseason, we've seen that even be more of an emphasis, not just on the court, but also like Jeremy Sohan literally saying it in interviews.
Hmm.
Um, so I think at least, I believe is this the final year of his contract that he was on in the past? That's what I was trying to
I
look up.
believe so.
I believe so too. So I think that this is 2 years after that. I think there might be a chance that there's maybe one more year that's 7.5 million, but I think this is the last year. I was trying to confirm it. I went on Real GM and I still couldn't figure it out. So Tell us in the comments if you know. But the point is regardless, we're going to have Zach for at least another 2 years after this season. And going back to the high post point, maybe after that, when Wembanyama becomes a center and maybe us and Zach part ways, we don't want that to happen, but that is a very real possibility if we're just going to be honest. But the thing is, for those next 2 years, like, that guarantees we're going to be able to run that offense out of the post as Wemby continues to develop and, really become an adult. I know that sounds crazy to talk about, but like, when he is a man player and he's not a 19-year-old anymore, like, I don't know how to picture that, Ethan, because we haven't seen it before. Because in his 6 preseason games, we're seeing crap we haven't seen before.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah, I don't even want to guess, because it's just, yeah.
You don't know. But the point is, as he develops, you're going to have Zach there to kind of be on the other side of it, and just stabilize everything and be the facilitator for everybody around him.
Jeremy Sohan might be the point guard, and Devin Vassell might be the primary ball handler, but he's the primary facilitator and playmaker in that starting unit for sure.
As you say that, I believe he led the Spurs in assists throughout the preseason. Yeah, I'm about to go confirm that. But yes, he did. Actually, nope, I'm wrong. Trey did pull it out. Oh no, wait, never mind. Ignore that. Scratch that. That was last year.
Never mind. But he at least got like 4, 5, or 6 a game pretty regularly during the preseason.
Yes, yeah. At least I believe I saw a tweet like 2 games ago that he was, and I think in the next 2 he got another 4 or 5. So maybe Trey jumped up there, but I don't think so. I'm pretty sure it was Zach, which is once again telling to this whole point.
1,000%. Well-deserved contract.
Faux show, Ethan. But we got to see more of the rest of the roster last Friday in San Francisco against the Golden State Warriors. We got to see what the point Sohan lineup would look against the small ball of the Warriors. We got to see what Wembanyama would look like against the Warriors in general. You got to see Sohan versus Steph. You got to see a ton of fun stuff in that game. Tons of Wemby highlights, of course, because he was guarded by Klay Thompson or Andrew Wiggins for most of the game, which is just kind of unfair. As much as that sounds crazy, because those are both former like all-star players and champions. But at the same time, there's only so much you can do against a guy like Victor Wembanyama, Ethan. You watched it full through. Obviously, I'm thinking of a lot of the swats that he had on Andrew Wiggins, and Andrew Wiggins trying everything he could, putting every move possible on Wemby and still not being able to find anything. Give me your debrief from watching that game Friday night.
Yeah, Andrew Wiggins really only had one successful drive on Victor Wembanyama, and it was like borderline an offensive foul. Like, he really put his shoulder into Victor's chest or stomach even and shoved him off, and Vic just didn't even jump for it. He just kind of backed up, like, I'm not going to go for this one. But we looked very, very impressive. I mean, obviously Victor Wembanyama played phenomenal, and I was a little worried about this game because, the Warriors and their small ball lineup, maybe he'll be exposed, maybe they'll cross him up, maybe he'll fall down, because that's just what they do against big centers, big power forwards like Victor Wembanyama. But he was successful in literally every endeavor that they tried. Like, he guarded Chris Paul, he guarded Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins. It didn't matter. Kevon Looney, he was getting rebounds, he was getting blocked shots like crazy. I think he had 4 in like the first quarter or something like that. And scoring at all 3 levels. Once again, it didn't matter who they threw at him. Andrew Wiggins guarded them some, Klay Thompson, Kevon Looney. There was no matchup that really bothered him offensively. And for the team itself, my biggest takeaway was our defensive intensity was fantastic. And Jeremy Sohan's approach to guarding Steph Curry was fantastic. I mean, you can't stop Steph Curry, but Jeremy Sohan did a phenomenal job. I thought he would really struggle, but at 6'8", whatever height he is, 6'8", 6'9", he really stayed with Steph Curry very well, chased him around screens pretty successfully, and our rotations were crisp. We were able to switch 1 through 5 pretty much the entire game, and give them a lot of troubles. The only guy I felt that was successful offensively for Golden State, like regularly, was Klay Thompson. I don't have the numbers in front of me,
but I'm about to pull them up.
We did struggle a little bit. I felt like just watching the game, the eye test, as far as getting off of screens and closing out on shooters like Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. I know I just gave Jeremy a lot of compliments for how he did guard Steph Curry. And part of that may have just been a poor shooting night for Steph, but that's an area that may need some improvement or may be a struggle because of like Jeremy's not as quick as Trey getting off the
Right.
screens because he's so big. Now it helps
Mhm.
when we're switching 1 through 5, but when he's not switching it, when he's having to get over those screens, that may pose an issue. But I'm not super worried about it because of our swarming ability that we just talked about. And JJ Redick brought up a good point when talking about Victor Wembanyama's approach to defense, Jude, on his podcast. I don't think it was recent. I think this may have been an older video.
Mhm.
He was talking about how Vic is able to hedge, blitz, and just stay level on screen and roll defensive coverages, like, all at one point. Like, most guys have to choose. I'm either gonna drop back or I'm either
Yeah.
gonna blitz the ball handler. He could do everything at once because of his length. So that is going to be an unbelievable asset and something I never really thought about. Like, I knew he was tall. I knew he could contest as a help defender for basically any part of the court, but screen and rolls are the most difficult thing to defend. And when he's able to defend basically three guys at one time,
Mhm.
that's going to be a huge asset to our defensive identity.
Yeah, this isn't necessarily a screen and roll situation, but I remember in the Miami game there was a specific situation where Reggie Miller, right? Reggie Miller's
Yeah.
on the commentary team. Yeah, he was like, Wemby's guarding like two defensive players down here in this one play, and like I said, I don't think that was a screen and roll, but still, like, obviously it's going to be more effective in a screen and roll because there's more players involved. And even regardless, the fact that he can guard multiple players at once is just ridiculous and
Yeah.
obviously has a huge impact on the defense. But some other things that I wanted to talk about kind of in this Golden State game, and they touch on some of the things that you said as well, is I remember, I forget which post game it was, or maybe it was the SSPN recaps, but going into this season we talked about how the idea of Wembanyama matching up with Klay Thompson once it was announced that he was going to play the 4 for the Warriors. And like I said, I didn't get to watch the whole thing, dude, but just from the highlights, I could tell that, kind of when we said that, I was joking a little bit. Like, obviously it's like, okay, that will be tough, but like, how effective is it going to be against the Warriors, And still, it's a preseason game, but we got to
Hmm.
see, it seems like we got to see a good 3.5 quarters of that, and they were
Yeah.
really struggling to deal with it, it seemed like.
Yeah, and give Klay Thompson some credit. Like, I remember the first couple post ups Wemby tried on him, he did push him out pretty far. Like, he started at the low block and he ended up
Yeah.
getting him about 16 feet away from the basket, and was really, I was surprised, but his I guess you don't look at Klay Thompson and think strong guy, but his
Right.
base is very sturdy. So it was kind of tough for Wemby, or anybody for that matter, to back him down. But because he's 7'4", he was just like, I can just rise up and shoot from here. Like, it's fine. Like, Klay Thompson just can't contest any of his jumpers. So I think it's okay that he gets pushed out for now. He's still not going to be able to do anything.
You know what's so funny about that too is we dealt with that so much. Obviously not to Wemby's extent, but think about how much time we spent on this channel, Ethan, talking about Keldon at the 4 being outmatched because of
Yeah,
size. And now we
literally.
finally get to reap the rewards of it.
You
Against
know,
the Warriors, no less. Like,
it was a really solid showing. And I know you watched the highlights, but just you talked about Keldon. I felt like he had probably his best game of the preseason. I know he only had 12 points, but just as far as finding kind of a rhythm within the
yeah,
offense, he looked way more comfortable. He was able to cut to the basket, maneuver off of screens, and even kind of take guys off the dribble from time to time. He felt more comfortable than in the past couple games.
that's really good to hear. Yeah, I'm excited to watch it full through. We were talking
Hmm.
about it beforehand. I actually found out that my YouTube TV did record it, so I'm actually going to be able to watch that before Wednesday, which will be fun because that looked
Nice.
like a fun one. And especially even though it's preseason, just seeing those reps like Sohan against Steph and stuff like that. And that was another thing you touched on. Obviously, it's kind of, while Jeremy is a lot further ahead defensively than he is offensively, it's still kind of the same situation because he's such a young player. There are going to be works in progress. And also, this is like, if we're talking about chasing people off screens, not saying you're wrong with your point because you're right on the money, but at the same time, like, chasing around the Warriors is probably like the game where you're going to get exposed the most
Yeah,
in that
true.
area.
For sure. I mean, you have the two greatest shooters of all time and the two
Right.
greatest off-ball movers of all time. So yeah, you're 100% right. And another little note that I heard on the JJ Redick podcast. It wasn't JJ. Forgive me, I don't remember the gentleman's name, but he was talking about Jeremy and Wemby and their possible duo of the future. And he was like,
Yeah.
Sohan, he's like, man, I don't know what he's good at, but he certainly does a lot. And I was like, that's so accurate of an assessment. Like he does so much, and then he always fills up the box score, but he's not great at anything offensively yet. So if he can kind of fine tune some of those things, like imagine how great of a player he's going to be.
That's why I always say on the show, like, he has potential everywhere. Like, I'm not trying to
Literally.
be exaggerative. I'm not trying to make him seem like he's going to be Michael Jordan or something. Like, I'm just saying that, like, he's got a lot of skills everywhere. And when you have the
Hmm.
Spurs development staff, like, they can hone in on a lot of those different things. Um, and it's going to be exciting to watch him. And, to touch on Sohan a little bit more, this is just something I've been thinking about whenever it comes to this point Sohan lineup, because we were talking about it offensively. And that was really kind of how I was even thinking of it throughout the offseason, how it became an idea for me, and
Hmm.
just, the whole conversation we had leading up to the season, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about this, I believe, in our last live stream, but it's becoming more and more even clear to me when I think about the point guards in our division. This is such a defensive move, man, because
Hmm.
we've got Luka Doncic, who he's going to match up with on Wednesday, which that kind of leads into that, which we're going to talk about. But also you got Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I remember you and I had a conversation about him and Trey a couple episodes back, and how, like, we remember him getting taken advantage of a little bit there.
Hmm.
And then you got Ja, and Ja's a little bit different, but still, a explosive, dynamic all-star guard. And
Hmm.
then, as if he can get everything, together mentally. And then you've got Jalen Green, but even whenever it comes to the Rockets, they're kind of similar to us in that many of their, like, Jabari Smith could take it up for them. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yes.
So the whole synopsis and point that I'm trying to make here is that you would rather Jeremy Sohan guarding Luka Doncic, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and whoever we're matching up with in the division. Zion takes it up sometimes if he
Hmm.
stays healthy. Like, that is going to be so helpful defensively, because as much as I love Trey and I think that he is a starting caliber point guard, um, I think just there's some things that Jeremy can do defensively and some ways that he can match up with those guys that Trey just can't.
For sure. And what we were talking about in the offseason, some of the guys that wanted Jeremy or Keldon to go to the bench, and their arguments were always, well, they can open up and be more offensively, I don't know, well rounded, and just kind of approach the game differently, and it would be beneficial for their game. I think we may have overlooked how beneficial this is going to be for Trey Jones' offensive game. I mean, this guy can score. Like, we never really give him credit because he only gets about 10 to 12 points a game, and it's always like floaters, and he doesn't have a great 3-point shot. But he can create in the in between game, and being such a great facilitator, it's going to open up lanes for him to just kind of become a scorer for us off the bench next to Malachi Branham. They can kind of take turns playing off of each other, and maybe his scoring average will go up a little bit, Jude.
That you took the words out of my mouth, Ethan. That was exactly what I was thinking. And the only thing that I'll add to that is that I think Shetty Osman is only going to help him,
For
because he's
sure.
going to be able to facilitate. Obviously, Malachi can bring the ball up as well. But, like, the reason I was smiling when you were talking, I was thinking about some Shetty Osman pick and pops, pick and rolls, whatever. Just you put him in that situation with Trey. And I think a lot of good plays will be made. That's really more thinking about Trey passing the ball. But
Hmm.
as we've seen throughout the this preseason, Shetty can definitely facilitate, just with his play style and his background. So I think that him and Malachi will be setting Trey up for some cuts to the basket. Because one of the things that I've really noticed in preseason is Trey, like, even in traffic, like up and unders, if he's driving to the
Hmm.
basket, like I said, there can be two guys there, but he'll find a way to put it in. So I think that definitely off the bench, we can take advantage of his scoring ability more. And I think that it will also be easier for him to score, as we've also kind of talked about throughout this whole process, that whoever gets moved to the bench,
Hmm.
they're going to have some benefits, on their side as well.
He adds an element of controlled chaos to that bench unit, which it
Yeah.
desperately needed, honestly. Because last year it got a little, like, it was efficient, but it was a little too, I don't know, predictable in a way. And he adds an element of chaoticness, but obviously it's controlled because he's Trey Jones, and his assist to turnover ratio, I think, is like number one or number two in the league. At least it was last season.
Yeah. Yeah. It was up there for sure. Any final thoughts on that Golden State game, Ethan, before we move on to the Mavs preview?
Man, it was an impressive game, and because of that game, Kevin Garnett said he thinks the Spurs should make the playoffs. So that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy to hear. Was that the Paul Pierce clip
Yeah,
from recently?
KG
Yeah.
and Paul Pierce. Yeah, KG was like, he's got that. You know how KG talks. He's like, man, he's like, I didn't give him credit, man, but that guy, he's different. The Spurs should make the playoffs. Real talk. And yeah, I love
I
KG.
th- I think it's going to be funny, just talking about that, right? Like that type of stuff that we're going to see more is all of our other guys are going to like become like so much more well
I
known.
know,
And I know that's like with a given saying, but it's going to be really nice to see like Devin appreciated by the rest of the league.
for
Cause
sure.
once these people like actually get to watch the Spurs, which they haven't been doing, they're going to be like, oh, Malachi Branham is a starting caliber like shooting guard when he hits his peak.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've got a lot of young talent. It's gonna
1000%.
it's gonna be fun to watch. Don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but that's the truth. I mean, I truly believe that about Malachi, and you never know, where the rest of these guys can go. We've just stacked up so many draft picks. It's very similar to our boy Sam Presti and the Oklahoma City Thunder, who will be another team that we'll be
Mm-hmm.
matching up against for years.
For sure. For sure.
But let's get to a different team in our division, Ethan. The Dallas Mavericks that we'll be matching up with this Wednesday in San Antonio. Victor Wembanyama's regular season debut, the
Mm.
Spurs season opener. I mean, this thing's going to be sold out. The Spurs fans are going to be rowdy. This is going to be like a coronation.
Yeah, it's going to be an event that I wish I could go to, Jude. I wish I could go
Me
to.
too.
And I'm gonna predict right now before we even get into the details, Spurs dub.
Ooh. I feel it too. I mean, I'm not like, like 100% confident in it, but I feel like we're just gonna like regardless of like the Mavs may end up having a better record than us, but I think just this opening night, it's just gonna be rowdy. All the vibes are gonna be going crazy. Wemby's gonna
Mhm.
make a bunch of plays, and the other thing about Wemby, you know. And I don't want to be like a Debbie Downer when I say this, but think about last season, Ethan. Remember how at the beginning of the year we started like 6-2 or something?
Yeah.
Like we kind of came out surprising people.
Yes.
I think that Wemby, I don't think that he's ever going to be completely locked or anything. Like he's not going to be shut down. But I think that in these first 2 weeks of the season or so, or the first round of games that we play against people, he might be able to take advantage of things more because teams don't have a game plan for him yet.
Mhm.
So I guess what I'm getting at there is I think it might even be more likely for us to catch some of these teams off guard early and beat them early in the season before they really get a game plan together. Not saying that that's necessarily going to completely stop it, because I just don't know how much you can do when he's as big as he is and as skilled as he is. But I definitely think there's going to be some things around the league that try to slow him down. So I agree with your sentiment, and I think there's good reason for it.
The energy is on our side. There's zero mental fatigue right now. Defensive intensity is at an all-time high since Tim Duncan's era. Like we are trying to get after guys. Pop wants to win, I'm sure. But you said it earlier. I think Jeremy Sohan being in the starting lineup at point guard, guarding Luka Doncic, Devin Vassell guarding Kyrie Irving. That's going to be a matchup to watch. And this is going to be a real test of our defensive intensity and whether or not this lineup is going to work, because this is what, like you
Yeah,
said, it was made to do, was guard teams like the Dallas Mavericks. And on the other side of things, I think Dallas just right now they have a little bit too much of a learning curve going into this season. They have new guys in the starting lineup: Derek Lively, the rookie, is starting at
right.
center, and Grant Williams starting at the 4 spot. So they'll have some things to figure out there. That'll be an exciting matchup too. I think
Yep.
Keldon and Grant might be matched up together, and
Yeah.
Keldon has a history with riding Grant Williams' back. Um,
I think that might be Wemby this game, bro.
it could be the Dallas Mavericks.
I'm not
They
trying
have
to be too cocky. They could definitely beat us.
they could, if Luka goes for 50, they're gonna win, like for
Right.
sure, and they
Right.
have that capability. So does
Kyrie
Kyrie
as well.
Irving,
And we know how he plays in the AT&T Center.
but they have 0 guys over 6'11" on their team. I'm pretty sure. Like Derek Lively's like 6'11", maybe 7 foot, and
Other than
then
him.
Dwight Powell
Right.
6'7".
What was their biggest weakness last year, Ethan?
Size. They had no rim protection, and now we're all of a sudden we have Zach Collins, who's a
Which
capable
is
post player, and we have Victor Wembanyama, who's 7'4", 7'5". So
it's like a different Zach too.
yeah,
I
Zach's
mean,
going. I think he might be like the first guy we go to, honestly.
yeah. So there are two technically game time decisions on the injury report. I did check. I think one of them is definitely going to play, and then the other maybe might not play, but I think probably both of them will. Luka Doncic and Jaden Hardy are both game time decisions. That's what they're listed on the injury report. The one that's definitely is Luka, and then I mean maybe they would hold out Jaden Hardy, but for this game they're definitely going to play Luka. I feel like they're probably going to play everybody,
Yeah,
and I kind of do hope that they play Jaden Hardy because I kind of like him. He
I like
didn't
him too.
he didn't pop out the way he was expected to for Ignite, but has G League experience and has really developed nicely. And I would like to see him in Malachi matchup because they're both 20-year-old combo guards, or Trey too. They're just kind of comparable players. But really, I'd like to see him in Malachi matchup just because they're like the same age, and I think that would be a good, just young shooting guard duel.
Yeah, he's a very talented dude. I live in Dallas. Obviously, everyone here is hyped on him. They think he's like six man of the year type candidacy, breakout year for him.
He was supposed to be like going into his year in Ignite. He was
Yeah,
supposed to be like a top 5 pick. Like I said, it didn't work out, but he had a lot of potential. And from what I saw last year, I could see that 6 man of the year role for him and like, kind of just becoming like a. I'm not saying, of course, as a Spurs fan, the first thing that comes to my mind is Manu. I'm not trying to say he's going to be Manu, but what I mean is a 6 man guard who scores a lot of points.
yeah. I'm trying to think of a better comparison because it's not Manu. But like
Yeah.
he's just a different type of
Jamal
player. But
Crawford.
that's a solid one, Jamal
Maybe
Crawford.
obviously Jamal Crawford's bigger than Homeboy, but you get what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
for
Shooting,
sure.
scoring guard. But other than that, Ethan, for this Mavericks game, what concerns you the most, other than just Luca being Luca?
Um, what concerns me the most, honestly, is us not showing up. The hype being too much, and Wemby shoots 3 for 16. Devin can't buy a 3 point shot. Keldon's missing in action. That's what scares me the most.
Interesting. I'm not as worried about that. What I'm more worried about, and this is something Pop has talked about, and we've kind of seen it a little bit in the preseason, is playing a 4 quarter game. Like us
Oh,
coming out just on fire,
it's a great
and
one.
then all of a sudden in the third quarter, we're down by like 7 after they've hit a
Hmm.
barrage of threes. I mean, dude, I'm thinking about the Mavericks, and it's like you've got Luca, you've got Kyrie, Josh Green is another
Hmm.
name. He just got an extension today. But taking advantage of the interior, because I think we're just going to have to match them shot for shot on the perimeter. Like not completely, but like Devin and Keldon are going to have to hit their threes. Malachi, whoever, they're going to have to compete with the volume of Luca and Kyrie. But
Hmm.
otherwise, I think we can really take advantage is obviously I think Derek Lively down the line is really going to solve a lot of the Mavericks problems. But
Yes,
in game one as a rookie, I think Zach and Wemby need to like let him know, hey, we're gonna like him and Grant Williams, like we're gonna dominate this front court all night because we're bigger and stronger than you, and
for sure.
longer.
That has to be the game plan, and that's what Dallas is preparing for. I don't know if I told you this, but
You did.
all week they had God Shamgod is one of their assistant coaches. He's had like arm extensions on to emulate Wemby's wingspan, and they've just been trying to finish around these arm extensions. And
Yeah.
so far, they haven't been able to do so, Jude.
Ooh. Interesting.
So I mean, obviously Luke is going to do his
Right.
thing, but everybody else has struggled a little bit.
That's another thing I'm excited to see. We're probably going to see some Luca Wemby one on
One on
ones
one.
just because of the European connection, because
Hmm.
those are probably, I mean, yeah, other than I know that Luca didn't go number one, but the point is when it comes to guys coming out of Europe, I mean, before what? Who was the last guy before Luca that was like a number one type player coming from Europe?
Type player or guy that just got taken.
Yeah, see, exactly. Just that just got taken. I think is the last one. Was it Kirilenko?
No, Andre
No,
Bargnani.
Bargnani. That's what I was thinking. Not
And if you
Kirilenko.
want to count Anthony Bennett, but he's quite Canadian,
Right.
and we don't really talk about Anthony Bennett
No, we don't.
or
I think
Andrew
they.
Wiggins.
I think the Cavs try to forget that too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Cat is technically Dominican Republican,
But
but
he's not European. Yeah,
no, he's not.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't count him.
I
Oh,
think
Kristaps
those.
Porzingis, but he was like
Oh, there you go.
4.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And Rubio is a free agent,
He was
right?
drafted at 6, I think,
Okay, no,
because
you're
it
right.
was
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
him. It went him, Ricky, or something Flynn. and then Steph Curry.
Gotcha.
The Timberwolves took 2 point guards
That's
back to
right.
back before
Oh,
Steph.
I forget about how many people were taking over Steph, but Steph was kind of the thing is though at that time even
For sure.
it really
For
wasn't
sure.
that crazy. But looking
But
back on it,
it's Ricky Rubio, Johnny Flynn, and Johnny Flynn played I think 2 years and then he was out.
yeah.
That's so sad. Oh no.
But there's definitely going to be some European smoke, if you
Yes.
will, in the building with Wemby and Luka. They're gonna both of them are gonna go at each other, just because of that connection, if you will. I know they're from different countries, but you get what I'm saying. I'm sure. I wonder if they've actually met in like any FIBA games or anything like that. But regardless,
Maybe. You know
it'll be
what?
a fun one.
My last point, I'm gonna do a call out. Or not a call out. A fuck excuse almost said the F
You're
word.
good. You're good.
I'm gonna do a what do you call it? What the hell do you call it, Jude? When you're guessing that something's gonna happen?
A prediction.
I'm gonna do a prediction. God, I'm so dumb.
You're
Prediction.
good.
A hot take here.
Okay. Okay.
Doug McDermott hits 5 threes
Ooh.
and goes off.
Very interesting. See, I can believe that because the attention's going to be on everybody else.
Exactly. Boy's gonna go crazy, and everyone's gonna go. When did they get Doug McDermott?
He's been here for like 2 years.
He's still playing. That's literally what everyone on Twitter is gonna say.
He's only 31.
This dude's ancient. Yeah,
Why does he look younger and faster?
literally.
That's
slender.
how I felt when we first got him.
He looks way better now than when
You know-
he was drafted.
Did you see the flashbacks they did?
Yes, I
today?
did.
That's exactly what I thought, bro. Doug upgraded, man, out of all of them. Like,
Yeah, for real.
he had like the longest length out of anyone they posted. Like he was the was the most veteran guy on the team, and he was the one who had the biggest upgrade. It was so funny. His hairline. Hey, look, no hate to Doug. He was a hooper at Creighton, but my boy is upgraded. Is what I'm trying to say. He's aged well.
For sure. I got one question for you, Jude.
Yes.
Who comes off the bench? Oh, wait, actually, never mind. This question's dumb because Trey Jones is coming off the bench. I was going to ask you who plays, Blake Wesley or Devontae Graham, but neither of them are going to play.
Yeah, and I I don't think that the bench lineup's really going to be that disputed either. I think it's going to be Trey, Malachi, Doug, Shetty, Bassey.
For sure. Unless Dom Barlow returns to just dismantle Dallas.
Dom Barlow returns with 40 and 40 this time.
Giving nightmares to my boy Dwight Powell.
Oh my gosh. Hey, okay, speaking of the Spurs third string front court, we have a signing today.
Oh, yeah.
Charles Bediako is now like
Yay.
officially a Spur. He got the last two-way. That was very expected. But I think the nice thing about it, Ethan, is that after, we signed Seth Milner for like 2 days and then cut him, and we, knew we were going to have this open two-way spot. You and I kind of talked about where positionally we thought the team needed it most, and we both unanimously agreed that it was center. So, I mean, I believe Bediako, let me just double check this, but I believe he's 19 or 20. So a very young player, obviously, someone just coming out of Alabama. So he's actually a little bit older than that. He's 21, but still played 2 years at Alabama, went undrafted last year, but was a part of our summer league team. He's somebody who's been a part of our system the whole time. And the reason that I wanted to bring this up, Ethan, is because you brought up Barlow. The Austin Spurs G League lineup this year, man. I don't know who our point guard's going to be, but let me tell you that Serge Ibaka, Ceedy, Barlow, Bediako.
That's tough.
G League, wake up.
What are the Motor City Go-Go's are not ready.
The Delaware Bluecoats
Well,
we took all their players, so.
Yeah, true. We did. We really did.
Oh my gosh. Our man Kevin Grand Prix, he asks us, how will Sohan do at Point Wednesday? We touched on this just a little while ago if you just got in here, Kevin, but mainly the thing that I don't know how he's going to do. This is kind of going to be the first test game, especially against a guy like Luka. But if the way that he played against Steph was any indicator, obviously Luka a little bit bigger, but there are a lot of threes and a lot of step backs taken between both of those guys. Luka's a little bit more of a ball handler than running off screens like Steph. But at the same time, I think that there'll be some moments where we're like, this is why we're playing this lineup, where he'll get a steal or maybe he'll block Luka. And then there'll also be some moments where he probably gets, step backed on. There'll be some up and downs, but I think overall, after watching this game, you will realize, okay, defensively, that what he does defensively against Luka will far outweigh any offensive struggles.
Yeah, and offensively for Jeremy, I think we'll probably see more of the same as far as being a point guard is concerned. However, I hope what we try and do, I don't think the referees will play this game with us, but I hope Jeremy tries to get Luka in foul trouble. Because Luka, no, you're good. Historically, Jeremy has got under Luka's skin. So I'm also predicting a double technical at some point in this game between Jeremy and Luka Doncic. But I'm hoping Luka plays a little too aggressively defensively, trying to outdo Jeremy when Jeremy posts him up or something, or just takes him down low. And hopefully we can get him in foul trouble.
So, you know how earlier I made that point about Sohan guarding Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Luka Doncic? There's a name I forgot in our division. I mentioned Jalen Green. I should have mentioned Amen Thompson, because he's 6'6" and someone who's going to be the point guard of the future for the Rockets that we'll have to match up for years, that Sohan is the perfect matchup for whenever it comes to his size. Like, he's going to be able to guard him a little bit better than Trey, as we mentioned a little bit earlier. All shout out to Trey. I hate even saying that every time, because Trey really is a solid defender. It's just like Amen's been listed at 6'7" sometimes, and Trey is 6'1". That's all I'm talking. It's literally, that's the only thing it has to do with. But bigger point here, Ethan. We saw how much Sohan pissed off Amen in both of those two games. And that is another theme with all of these guys. Like, if you can get under some of the star players' skins, especially dudes who are facilitators, like, there's a lot of benefits you can get from that. Turnovers can start happening, frustration within the offense. Sohan is not just like a defender, like just straight basketball wise, but he is also a defender like mentally, if you get what I'm saying. Like, he messes with guys on the court and like off the court while they're on it, if that makes sense.
1000%. And Luka's the type. I love Luka Doncic. I think he's my favorite player. I have his jersey. Mavericks are my second favorite team. But he gets into his own head sometimes, and he lets these little things like the referees not giving him calls, guys talking trash, and suddenly he'll start taking way too many step back threes when he should have given the rock up. And suddenly his usage percentage is at 45%, and Jason Kidd's upset. So,
yep. Perfect opportunity for Jeremy there. Nick, shout out to you. You're an OG, my guy. Glad you've been able to keep up with everything on Spotify. Thanks for coming and hanging out. And I think that's really all I got for this one, Ethan.
That's all I got, my friend.
Any final thoughts? Any final parting words before we ascend into Wednesday, where we will all spiritually awaken when Victor Wembanyama steps on the court as the San Antonio Spur in the regular season for the first time in the Frostbank Center?
We're blessed. I keep saying it every live show. I'm ending it that way. We're blessed.
I'm gonna end it with the other way that you've ended it. We up.
ESPN about to use that
in the hype video for sure. For sure. We appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us tonight. Don't forget to hit that like button and that subscribe button below for all of the content during this season and during Victor Wembanyama's like inaugural parade through the NBA. You might as well just call it that, because that's what it's going to feel like. And yeah, I'm just so excited for this season, Ethan. And if you want to keep up with all of it, follow us on Twitter at SSPN on YT, at Jude McLaren, and at Ethan_Quintero. We appreciate you guys. We'll catch y'all in the next one. See y'all later.